Parashat, in Parashat Shelach, we read about the story of the spies, where the Jewish people sent in spies to go into the land of Israel, to scout out the land, to see what type of people there are, how the land looks. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle that when the spies came, he made that there would be a lot of funerals going on during that time, large funerals. So this way the spies could come in without anybody looking out of them. People are too involved with the funerals, and people think, hey, maybe they're coming for the funeral, maybe they're coming for whatever it is. People are not looking at spies. Generally, someone comes into the town, at least in the olden days when there wasn't so much travel, you'd be like, oh, who are these new people? But now that there's a funeral going on, people weren't so much focused on it. So the spies were easily able to slip into the land and scout out the land. However, the spies saw it very differently. The spies walked into this land. They see all these funerals going on, huge funerals. And what does it says in the Parashat, chapter 13, verse 32? It says, Eretz ochelet yoshvea. The land is eating its inhabitants. They're saying, like, look, there's so many funerals going around. Must be that this land is not a healthy land. It must be that something is destroying the land. But really, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. God made a miracle so they could slip right in. So why is it that they saw it that way? And why couldn't they go and see it in the correct line? And how do we know that it's not really the case that the land of Israel really eats its inhabitants, causes many people to die? The proof is in the pasuk that there were large funerals, meaning that if people are constantly dying, then people get used to it, and then there's not going to be large funerals. It's like, oh, there was another one that passed away. There's another one that passed away. Unfortunately, and the family suffers, but it's not as big of a tragedy. When you have one tragedy after another tragedy, we sort of get desensitized to things. So the fact that this land of Israel had so many funerals, and the funerals were huge, showed that it's uncommon that there would people be dying. And that's why there were so many people gathering in it. So then how come, the question that we have to ask is, the spies didn't see it in that manner? Says the Stipler, goes and he answers and says, when the spies came into the land, they had already a subconscious feeling of where they wanted this to go. Right now, in the desert, the spies were the Nisi'im. They were the princes. They had high-ranking positions. But what would have happened if the Jewish people would have entered the land? Then it's very possible that they would lose their positions. And if they would lose their positions, so they're like, okay, so I don't really want so much for it to go in. At least subconsciously, I don't want, that we should go into the land, because then I lose my position. So what happened is that they started seeing things in their own light. They started being very subjective. Things that were bad, they interpreted as good. Things that are good, they interpreted as bad. And we see this in our own lives. You have somebody that, let's say, wants to buy a certain product, really wants to buy it. And they get to the store, or they're speaking with the representative on the phone, and the representative saying, it's not really, this one is a little bit defective, this one is not, maybe is missing something, but if you really want it, and you're like, you need to get your hands in it, you're like, okay, fine, it doesn't matter, defective, I'll get a discount, it'll be worth it for me, and so on and so forth. And then, on the flip side, let's say you don't want to buy a product, and you go into the store, and they try to go and sell you the world. If you don't really want it, and it's going to be a very difficult sale. The easiest example that I could give you on this is in the dating world. You have, let's say, a guy that goes in and decides he's going to go date this certain girl. And he walks in, and right away, that first impression, he was like, you know what, it's not for me. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, whether it's the looks, it doesn't matter. But pick whatever reason you want, it's not for them. And they go in, and they see this initial reaction that they have, that they're not interested. Then what happens that throughout the date, they're going to go and they're going to interpret things for like, it's not really for me because of X, Y, and Z. It's not really for me because of, because she sneezes too much, because she coughs too much, because she doesn't smile enough. And we go and we start giving, excuses for things, and we see things basically the way that we want to see it, not the way that it really is. You look at the flip side. Let's say a guy goes into the door. He was going to date this girl, and he's not so excited about it. But then he goes in, and then whatever she does, it blows his mind, and he's like, wow, he's obsessed with her. And then anything that she's going to do, he's going to be like, what do you mean? So what if she goes and she coughs so many times? It's such a cute cough. And what happens if she sneezes so much? It's amazing. She's healthy. There's so many things that we go and we interpret it the way that we want it. In life, this is a very important lesson, that when we look at things and we have a reaction and we get maybe upset about a certain reaction, the question that we have to ask, is this really bad? Is this really the correct representation, correct interpretation that we should have on this subject? Or whether maybe we should go and think about how the spies did it, that they went in and they saw the land, they saw the difficulties of what was going on, and it was very obvious for the good, but for their own mind, they switched it and they turned it and it looked very bad. Who knows how many things in our lives are looking so bad, but in essence, if we just change those lenses and we look at it from the correct perspective, it's really the best possible thing that could happen to us.